So, Dr. Chatterjee, you're on an extraordinary mission in the UK, and you've created a show called Doctor in the House, a BBC show, where you go into people's homes and help them transform their lives using functional medicine. Tell us, why are you doing this, and what do you expect to get out of this?
This show, Doctor in the House, is a series of documentaries that's gone out on BBC television, and I think what my aim with the show is to demonstrate to people that actually no matter what condition you have, there are things that you can do with your lifestyle every single day that are going to improve it. Now look, sometimes you can reverse disease, you can absolutely prevent disease, but even if you don't have a label or a disease, actually making changes to your nutrition, making changes to your lifestyle can actually improve the way you feel. Whether that's just your mood, your energy levels, fatigue, all these things. And I don't think people really realize that. So I've been very lucky to actually have this opportunity. And whether it's type 2 diabetes, which I helped a lady reverse in 30 days, which 2 years on, she still does not have type 2 diabetes. Mm-hmm. Or whether it's fibromyalgia. Fibromyalgia pains went in 6 weeks, or anxiety attacks went down by 80% in 6 weeks, right? I used a different approach, well, Mark, functional medicine. I used that framework to help me look at these problems in a different way.
So it's really kind of extraordinary when you think about the show. It's called Doctor in the House, and you literally go into people's homes, you stay with them, you watch them, you explore their house, you understand the patterns that are going on there. What exactly do? You go into the house and just hang out and look in their fridge, or cook with them, or tell us about how this all works.
Yeah, well, it really depends on what that family's complaint is. So the first thing to understand is that I don't know when I knock on the door for the first time, I don't actually really know what's going on there. Okay, so I'm not involved with choosing who that patient is and what their problem is. My job is, like it is with every patient in my clinic, is to do the best that I can for them. Mm-hmm. So in this last series, there was quite a pretty complex cases, actually, much more complex than the first series. But when you strip these things back and you look at what are the factors in that person's life that is contributing to the way they feel, you can always do something, always. Mm-hmm. So look, what do I do? Well, in the lady who had type 2 diabetes, what's amazing about going into someone's house is that you start to see things that you would never see in your clinic, right? Yeah. So in clinic, we ask patients questions, right? And they give us answers. But the thing is that often they won't tell us the truth. And that's not because they want to lie to us. It's because they will filter the information that they think you need to hear. Mm-hmm. So what was happening in their house, I was seeing breakfast, lunch, dinner, nighttime snack. What is in their fridge? What are they really eating rather than what they tell me they're eating? Mm-hmm. So on a personal level...
So you do a fridge biopsy.
I did a fridge biopsy. Yeah, absolutely. But not in every case, right? Not in every single case. But there was a few cases where I had to go in and actually really re-educate them on what should be in their kitchen. Mm.
So when you went in there, what were you finding? We often as doctors don't get that window.
Yeah.
But it's extraordinary to actually see how people are living, their stress levels, whether they're exercising, how they manage their lives, what they're buying, what's in their cupboards, how they're cooking, when they eat. You get to see an extraordinary amount of information that tells you something. So what were the things that you found?
Yeah, well, it's the things we know well, Mark, the things we talk about all the time, but it's always comes down to the same sort of things. In people's kitchens, there's too many refined and processed carbohydrates, breakfast cereals, refined breads that have sugar as an ingredient.
It's like a double whammy, flour and sugar.
Yeah, ready meals.
It's like bread that doubles as cake.
Yeah, exactly. And then you open the cupboards and you see all the soft drinks, the carbonated drinks, even the diet drinks. There is so much in there that I think sometimes we, in the health world, we talk about these things. We assume that actually the message is getting out there. But actually, you go out there in the real world and people still don't know how toxic these foods are for the way that their bodies feel, but also how their brains feel. So food was a big thing. And it always, it never ceases to amaze me how simple changes to someone's diet within days can impact the way they feel.
Days, right?
Within days.
And as a doctor practicing medicine, we prescribe drugs.
Yeah.
And we rarely see drugs have that big an impact in such a short time.
Yeah.
Even in a long time.
Yeah, well, and I think what's interesting for me, because I am on a mission in the UK, and I'm on a mission to help transform the way that the public view health. Because I think we see, we talk about the brain health, right? I think we see the brain as separate from the body. And I think we see the heart as separate from the liver, as separate from the gut. And what we're realizing now is that the body is, this interconnected being. Everything, your hormones influence your brain, your gut microbiome influences your brain. Everything interacts with each other, right?
You're talking about going to these people's homes and noticing things that cause brain damage. What were the things you found that were most affecting people's brains and cognition and ability to focus and be present?
I think there's 4 key things that I saw in people's houses that were affecting their brain. And they're the 4 things that I think affect our health in general, and the 4 things that I think we've all got control over. So what we're eating, how we're moving, the quality of our sleep, and our stress levels. So the top 2 for me that I saw would be food and stress.
Yeah.
Okay? So I think stress is something that people often don't think about with their brain health. And I think it's a big problem these days. We're living in a society where we're overworked, we're underslept. We've got a constant stream of emails, tweets, Facebook. We're never switching off. And, for me, I find my email inbox stressful, okay? And we know that this kind of psychosocial stress raises levels of our stress hormone, cortisol. And cortisol damages our brain, or, if cortisol is too high for too long, it can, damage the cells in our hippocampus, which is where we lay down our memory, right? So I think if people really understood that, and we can help people understand that actually the stress in our lives is impacting our brain function.
Yeah.
And, I always talk to people, get 10, 15 minutes of me time every day, something, switch your devices off, just sit there, read a book, meditate, do some yoga, something, but just focus on that one task. I see that having profound impacts all the time. And I make it simple, Mark, for people. I have made deals with my patients before. They say to me, doctor, meditation, and I've heard about that, but I don't have time to meditate.
Yeah.
I said, okay, can you commit to 2 minutes a day? And they're shocked, right? Because they think I'm going to say they have to do 20 minutes a day. And I remember on the first series of Doctor in the House, I had a lady with menopausal symptoms, right? And her doctor wanted to prescribe hormones for her. She didn't want that. And again, in 4 weeks, we got her menopausal symptoms down from 15 out of 17 on the British Menopausal Society questionnaire, down to 2 out of 17. And a critical component of that was this kind of 15-minute relaxation in the evening. And I made a deal with her. I said, look, you have 4 minutes to brush your teeth every day, right? She goes, yeah. I said, why is that? And she said to me, well, because it's been prioritized since I've been a child, right? So that's just my normal habit. I said, let's make that meditation your normal habit, but let's start with 2 minutes a day. And if you start with 2 minutes, that becomes 5 minutes, that becomes 10. But if I start with 15, 20 minutes, they do it for 2 days, they don't manage to do it the 3rd day, and they give up.
Yeah.
So
that's powerful. Yeah. No, stress, that's very powerful. Because meditation, people don't realize, they think it's just a way of relaxing, but it actually reprograms your biology. It increases stem cell production. It decreases inflammation. It boosts your immune system. It helps regulate your hormones. It improves your blood sugar control. I mean, it's got massive effects. And I think one thing people don't realize about stress is that it causes a leaky brain. We talk about leaky gut, but there's a barrier in the brain that protects the brain. And when there's stress, that barrier breaks down, and a lot of outside influences can harm the brain. This is quite extraordinary. So tell me more about this gut issue, because I know that you focus a lot on the gut. You were sharing a story about an obese kid who had gut issues that allowed him to sort of fix those and ended up helping him lose a lot of weight. How do you approach the gut from a point of view of functional medicine within these patients?
Yeah, look, I think this is something I didn't learn at medical school. But this has been part of the training with the Institute of Functional Medicine, and all the additional education that I now do. I've learned that the health of the gut is critical, yes, for the health of the brain, but also plays a critical role in things like obesity, mood problems, all kinds of things. So how do I approach it? Well, first of all, I want to understand what that patient is eating. Okay, because we know that the biggest and the fastest way to change the health and the composition of your gut bugs is by changing your diet, right? So, there's so many tests you can do. I sometimes run stool tests to have a look at, what is the combination of bugs inside us. And I think, a lot of people still don't understand that we've got trillions of bugs that live inside us. And actually, it's the combination of those bugs and the community that is probably more important than actually the individual components. And one of the biggest measures I look for now is the diversity. How diverse is your gut? And depending on what I find, that will also dictate what I then do with the patient. So this 11-year-old boy you mentioned, who was obese, he was extremely obese, and he was struggling with his weight. His fasting insulin was 33. Now, depending which doctor you ask, we want to see a fasting insulin under 4, certainly under 6. So 33.
It's off the chart.
Off the charts. And, in 6 weeks, we got it to 9.5, from 33. But we did it with 2 measures. Yeah, we cut out refined and processed carbohydrates. So things like your refined breads, your cereals, the sweet drinks, the muffins, the donuts, okay? And we increased healthy natural fats, a lot of avocados, a lot of nuts, a lot of good quality meat and fatty fish. But also we put a rainbow chart on this little boy's fridge, and all the colors of the rainbow were there. And I said, you have to tick off every color every single day. Okay, and he did it.
Not by eating Skittles, though.
Not by eating Skittles. So, you've got, you've got the lycopene in tomatoes, right? Or as you guys say, tomatoes. We've got, you've got the blue, purple pigment in blueberries, right? But what people don't realize, I think, is that there is communication between our gut and our brain, right? When our gut makes chemicals, and those chemicals via the vagus nerve actually attach to receptors in our brain, and that can change the way our brain operates. So it's very, very powerful to understand that by changing what you eat, changing the health of your gut, you change the health of your brain. And fiber, I think, is very, very key. So I'm not talking about all bran. I'm talking about the fiber from plant foods. Like if you eat every color of the rainbow every single day, you're going to get lots of different sources of fiber. So the fiber comes down, your gut bugs feed on that fiber, and they make short-chain fatty acids. So these are chemicals really that are anti-inflammatory. They help our immune system. Some studies are showing they're anti-cancer. So it's really incredible just by increasing plant-based fiber in your diet. Not only are you getting all these polyphenols, not only are you getting all these lovely phytonutrients, but you're also making compounds in your gut that influence your brain. I think it's remarkable.
It's interesting you mentioned the sort of short-chain fatty acids. Most people don't know what those are, but they're basically the fuel that the bacteria make to feed your colon cells. So it's really a very symbiotic relationship. And we know that, for example, like you said, all these fibers help one of the most important compounds called butyrate. But when you eat wheat flour, which I don't mean whole wheat or regular wheat, flour is treated with a compound called calcium propionate, which is another short-chain fat that's very toxic and can cause ADD, behavior problems, autism, inflammation. In fact, in animal models, it induces autistic behavior when you inject it into the animals. So by eating all this bread and processed food, not only are we getting the sugar, but we're getting some of these really adverse compounds. So, a lot of people suggest that, this approach, functional medicine, is expensive, it's difficult, it's hard to do. If you don't have resources, how do you get it done? The testing, the supplements. But the truth is, you and I know that it actually isn't that hard. That with basic principles, like you mentioned, food, sleep, exercise, stress reduction, most of which are either free or food you have to buy anyway, you just change what you buy, you can actually have an enormous impact on your health. So how do you do this if you don't have resources?
Yeah, Mark, that's a great question. And it's something that people always say. And even when I went around the country in the UK filming Doctor in the House, I would stay with families from all different socioeconomic backgrounds. So cost would sometimes come up. But what I've realized, like you've already mentioned, is that 80%, I would say, is free. Right? 80% of what we need to do with our lifestyles, for most people, it is freely available to us. So if we talk about these 4 pillars, food, sleep, movement and relaxation, okay, what can people do in their diet? Well, very simply, if you reduce refined and processed carbohydrates, breads, muffins, pastas, these ones that are highly processed, and you increase healthy natural fats like avocados, nuts, fatty fish, that's something you can do immediately with your food that's going to have an impact on your health.
That's true.
Movement, okay? Whatever someone is currently doing with their movement, they can self-assess and go, am I moving enough? If not, maybe something simple like just putting an alarm on your phone once every hour to remind you to get up and walk around the block. Or, a tip I say is drink more water, because if you drink more water, then you have to get up regularly to go and pee, right? But it gets you up. Okay.
If that's your only exercise, go to the bathroom. I think you're in trouble.
Hey, I agree, but look, it's about
nothing.
meeting people where they're at, right?
Sure.
And it's all very well for me to say you need to do X amount of exercise every day. And that will work for some people, but I like to break it down and make it simple. Whatever somebody is currently doing, if they move more, that's going to have an impact.
Absolutely.
Right? On their physical health, on their brain health. And I like the 10,000 step that you target. I think it's a really good, easily measurable target for people. I've seen it with patients. They can get to the evening, they've only done 6,500 steps, and they're like, I'm going to go for a quick walk before dinner. So it's something measurable for people. But the other thing with movement is I think we've really neglected muscle and strength training. And I always talk to my patients, whether they're 20-year-old patients who want to get fitter and stronger, or whether it's a 75-year-old patient, I go through, and I'm there in the consultation room with them, showing them exercises. Because what I've realized, Mark, is that you can refer out to various specialists, but there's something powerful in that interaction with that patient. If I then take my jacket off and say, hey, look, what about this? Can you do this? And I will do that in the consultation room with them to inspire them, because our job, I believe, is to inspire a patient when they walk out, to make them feel, I can do this.
So you drop down to 50 push-ups in the exam room?
Hey, I have done that, but no, sometimes I've got patients, let's say a 72-year-old lady I had in clinic a couple of weeks ago, and she was nervous. I said, okay, well, look, I've got this thing that I call a 5-minute kitchen workout, right, that I teach people to do in their kitchen. So I try and remove the obstacle of paying for a gym membership, getting a personal trainer. Hey, look, I love the gym, and people like having a personal trainer. That's great. But I'm saying you can do a 5-minute strength workout in your kitchen every single day. And a recent couple I treated, right, I think they were in their early 60s. They hadn't done any form of strength training for maybe 20, 30 years. And they were concerned about their brain health. Okay, and they said, well, doctor, what can I do? And I explained to them how strength training is very important for their bodies, and how exercise in general, but strength training also increases levels of BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is like
Miracle Grow for your brain.
Exactly, miracle grow for your brain. Who doesn't want miracle grow for your brain, right? And they were nervous, so I showed them what they could do in their kitchen. Just 5 simple exercises: a wall press up, a kitchen worktop dip, right? And I showed them and I talked them through it. And when they came back a few weeks later, they said, Doc, we were scared, but we started doing it in the kitchen. And within 2 weeks, they were doing it 7 days a week in their landing upstairs while their evening bath was running. So this is a couple in their 60s, no strength training at all, but by showing them that it is free, it is simple, and it is doable, they felt great, and they started doing it every day. And I think every single patient has the ability to do that.
It's true. I mean, I often do what I call the 7-minute workout, so it's 2 minutes longer than the 5. And it's all you need is a chair. And your own body. And it's powerful. And it's a high-intensity workout. It's strength training. And it's portable. And you can do it anywhere. And it's extraordinary, the power of that. I hadn't done a ton of interval training. And I do this bicycle loop where I do it in about, usually 55 minutes. And all winter I didn't ride my bike, and I did this 7-minute training. And when I started riding my bike in the spring, I was riding 5 minutes faster day one, which was sort of striking to me that my body responded that easily and quickly. So it's very powerful.
But I was going to say, Mark, sleep is something that I don't think people realize how important sleep is. And if we talk about brain health, and we talk about the beta amyloid protein, this protein which accumulates in our brain in conditions like Alzheimer's disease, we know that when we sleep deeply and we sleep for long enough, actually our body processes a lot of this waste that builds up, including beta amyloid protein, and clears it out. So if we're...
Like your brain only detoxifies at night.
Exactly. And what I think is so powerful about that is if you explain that to a patient, so you give them the science that they need to understand how important that sleep is. So it's not just about, hey, you need to sleep more, right? Because everyone knows that. Okay, but how are we going to help our patients sleep better? The first thing is we have to explain to them why it's important for them. Okay? If we've done that, then often all someone needs to do is prioritize their sleep. Okay? For many people, that's all they have to do, because in the world that we're living in today, okay, if we're not prioritizing sleep tends to fall by the wayside. There's too many temptations, with Netflix or whatever. There's so, and I'm as guilty as anyone, right? Of being tempted. So sometimes all people have to do is, and I say to them, look, what about for the next 7 days? All you do is you go to bed half an hour a night earlier and tell me how you feel in 7 days. I'm telling you, more often than not, people feel better. They make better food choices the next day because they've slept better. They've got more energy. They feel sharper in their brain. Their brain fog has gone down. And these are simple, free interventions that people can do. That doesn't cost money, right?
No.
Doesn't cost anything.
No. And the food thing is interesting because we often think that eating well is expensive. And you don't have to get the most expensive cut of meat or the most expensive rare vegetables. But eating just real food doesn't have to be that much more. In fact, I went to this family, it's part of the Dr. Oz show that I was on, where we went in Florida, and they lived in a kind of a very small little house, family of 6, very poor, and we got them eating real food. And I went down to their house and visited them, and I saw coconut oil and almonds and avocados, and I said, wow, isn't this expensive for you? And they were like, no, it's actually cheaper than what we were eating before, because we bought a case of soda for each of our family every week. And you start cutting out all the stuff that they're buying and the processed food, which is actually pretty expensive when you think of pennies per nutrient.
Yeah.
When you actually look at how nutrient poor it is, you're getting not very much for your money. You're getting a lot of calories, but not a lot of nutrients. And so they actually felt better. They lost, I think, 300 pounds as a family.
Wow.
And they loved it. And they started spreading to their relatives, and it was done on a budget. And I think there's a big myth about how it's expensive to eat real food. It's really not. Yeah,
The first family I ever went to as part of my documentary series, Doctor in the House, I remember really clearly the very first day I'd met the family, okay? And I had not diagnosed type 2 diabetes at that point because I hadn't run bloods, hadn't done anything yet, and they didn't know what was going on with the health. That's what I came in. And the evening, the father of that family said, hey, Doc, come on, let's go. Let's, I'll tell you what we normally eat. So I went in the car with him, and we drove 15 minutes out of town to a fast food restaurant, and we went through the drive-thru, and he ordered 4 meals, but each family member, so there's 4 people in the family, had 2 meals each, right? And this cost £48, okay?
Whoa.
So we're talking about, $65, something like that.
Yeah.
That's just for one evening meal, and they were doing this about 5 nights.
That's right.
A week.
People don't realize, yeah.
Yeah. And it was amazing because what was interesting about that, though, is he said, Doc, I feel a bit embarrassed that you're going to see all this. I said, hey, don't. Look, I just want to observe what the more I know about what you're currently doing, the more I can help you. And what was interesting is that, A, that's a lot of money. And when I moved them over to eating real, fresh, whole food, they were saving money.
Saving money, right?
Right? But the other thing was, he felt bad in front of me that he was eating this. So actually on one level, intuitively, as a family, they knew that actually what they were eating wasn't particularly good for them. And I'm interested as to, I think a lot of people around the country, right, around the world know that fast food and junk food is probably not good for them. So the question is, why are they not changing?
Because they don't know what to do.
Exactly. And that's the key. That's what we need to help them see what else they can do.
Yeah, it's powerful. And I think that's true. I observed the same thing. And they actually don't know what to do. They know what not to do. They sort of try not to do it. But, if you take a chicken, a couple of chickens, whole chickens, throw them in the oven, make a salad, roasted sweet potatoes, that's much less expensive to feed a family of 4 than, going to fast food and spending $60.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I think it's really important that message gets out.
And by the time he gets there, comes back, it's about the same amount of time spent, actually.
Yeah, I said that to him. And then there's the gas cost of driving 15 minutes there and back. That's half an hour of driving.
Yeah.
And a $65 meal. Yeah. That's a lot of money if you're doing that 5 nights a week.
Right.
So it's really remarkable.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of time in the wellness community, we often don't think that actually, or we don't have that realization that there's actually a lot of communities out there who don't know this and need help and understanding. And something I feel incredibly passionate about. I don't know what it's like in the US, but in the UK, a lot of doctors will say, patients don't listen. They don't listen to what we tell them. And I've got a problem with that because I genuinely believe that people don't want to be unwell. And if we can explain it to that patient in a language that they understand, that it means something to them, I find by and large people want to make that change.
They do.
But if we do this, right, if you've got 10 minutes with a patient, right, or 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and you say to someone with type 2 diabetes, right, which we know can also affect your brain, the blood sugar, right? But if you say to them, you talk to them about medication, about what you need to do and what drugs you're going to need to be on. And right at the end, you say, but also if you can just change your diet, lose some weight, that's going to help you. That's very different from starting off and saying, hey, you've got this condition, right? Yeah, we've got some drugs, but look, there's plenty you can do with your lifestyle. I'm going to teach you, I'm going to show you what you can do. Are you interested? I tell you, people say yes, right? So I think it's the way that we don't prioritize it as a profession. We assume patients won't do it.
Yeah, sure. We say, well, I told them to lose weight and eat better and exercise, and they didn't do it. I'm like, how helpful is that? Eat better, exercise, I'll see you in 3 months. If that doesn't work, we'll use drugs. Well, that is not good medicine. Right?
Exactly. So I think we can make a difference. We can change people's health, and people want to get healthier. People want their brains to function. Who wants to wake up with brain fog, right? Nobody wants that, right? Because it impacts not only their health, but it impacts their relationships with their spouses, with their children, with their work colleagues. That then causes more stress. Stress raises cortisol. Cortisol starts to damage your brain, and you're in this vicious cycle, right? So what we need to find is the lever to turn for that patient to start, instead of a negative cycle, let's start a positive cycle that helps feeding more and more health.
Yeah. So Dr. Chatterjee, how do you keep your brain healthy? What do you do every day to maintain your health? I mean, you work hard, you travel, you're on a TV show, you have a clinic. I mean, it's not easy, right?
It's not easy.
Family, 2 kids.
Yeah, you're right, Mark. It's not easy, particularly when traveling, because when you're in your own environment and you've got everything surrounded by you that actually helps you stay healthy, it's okay. But obviously, I'm traveling at the moment, traveling out here to see you and do our filming, and it is incredibly difficult. So what do I do? Okay, first of all, I'm prepared. Okay. I remember you saying it a few years back about don't get yourself in a food emergency, right? And I think you're spot on, because if you're not prepared, you're going to find yourself hungry, tired, craving something. And if you're in an airport, often, there's nothing but sugar or processed foods, right? So how do I keep myself healthy? Because I do live and breathe this myself, okay? So again, I talk about food, movement, sleep, relaxation. Food. I will eat whole, real food pretty much every day, even when I'm traveling. Did I do that 6-7 years ago? No. Okay, it was a slow process. Was it hard at first? Yeah, it had its challenges, but now it's normal for me.
It's automatic.
It's automatic. I'm not even tempted anymore. My taste buds have shifted, right? I've retuned them in to what whole natural food is. So I will eat that every day. I will carry with me, I'll take tins of wild salmon with me when I'm on the road. It'll be in my backpack just in case I'm hungry. I can peel it open and have something, right? I will make sure that I work out every day, even if it means from my bed, if I just hit the deck and do push-ups and tricep dips and squats, right? Sometimes that's all I'll do, but that it all helps. You know,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be a 1 hour gym workout. You know, little bits can really help. I will prioritize sleep. Okay, that's something that changed for me maybe 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, as doctors, we're trained, who needs sleep? Stay up all night, be on call, deliver
Yeah,
babies.
but I would genuinely switch off at home. I will switch off maybe at sort of 8:30. That's my cutoff. I will put my computer off. I won't answer emails. I often won't take calls after that time. And I will get to bed early, because I find when I do that, everything else gets easier. But my weak spot, the one area I struggle with, is the stress piece, because, you know, running around trying to do multiple things, I find it tricky.
Yeah.
But I tell you, you know, when my son was 3 years old, when he was a bit younger, I remember he wouldn't sleep very well. Okay, he'd be up several times a night, but I disciplined myself to get up early and do just 5 minutes of meditation every morning. And I tell you, I felt like a different person.
Totally.
My energy went up. I was less reactive in the day. Recently, that's fallen off again. Okay, and that's the one area I struggle with. You know, is trying to discipline myself to do that. And for me, if I do it when I get up, it happens.
Yeah.
If I don't, it doesn't happen. Simple as
Yeah,
that.
it's powerful. You know, I people say, well, I'm too busy to meditate. Well, I find I'm too busy not to meditate.
Yeah.
That just taking that time in the morning, I can do it in the car, or on a plane, I can do it in a subway, even at the end of the day. I always try to do it 20 minutes twice a day, and I think, well, 40 minutes, who has 40 minutes in a day? But it's made everything else so much better. It's made me more focused, more ability to think, have more energy, better sleep, less anxious, less reactive, better able to be present for what I'm doing. And it's kind of magic. And I never would have imagined it was that powerful. And I think people underestimate the importance of hitting the pause button and stopping the stress response, which happens automatically, but the profound relaxation and healing that comes with meditation or some similar practice is just not something that happens automatically. It actually has to be an active process.
Yeah, I agree, Mark. And I think one thing we have to do as a community is demystify meditation, because I think lots of people have lots of hang-ups about it. You know, is it religious? Is it deeply spiritual? Is it, you know, do I need to sit and chant you know, like, you know, they've got all these kind of misconceptions.
It's like exercise for your brain.
Yeah, exactly. But it can be, like, let me give you an example. So my wife, she cannot stand the thought of plugging into an app and having someone guide her through a meditation, right? Because she can switch off naturally. And so she doesn't like that. Me, for example, I struggle a bit with that. So I like the act of plugging into my app and pressing play and someone talking me through it, right? Two different ways of doing it, but they suit different people. So I think there are many ways that people can meditate and or be mindful, you know, and as you say, it's simply about pressing that pause button, and it doesn't matter how you do it. And actually with some patients, I say, you know what, maybe for you, it's as simple as finding your favorite bit of music, right, putting it on and immersing yourself in it, but don't be scrolling your phone at the same time. You know, to put the lights off, close your eyes and just listen intently to that music. That is a form of meditation, right?
Sure.
So it's about finding the right one for that patient, I think.
All right, thank you, Dr. Chatterjee, for joining us today.
Thanks, Mark. My
Appreciate it.
pleasure.